right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we are live from Maya Cinemas in Las Vegas to talk about Furiosa, a Mad Max story. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and doing it live, it was so much fun. Had a great lineup of guests on this one: Shahab Zargari, Toni Gonzales, and Sam Novak, all returning to the show. We get into a lot of great puzzle pieces, got a lot from the audience. It's an awesome episode. Very excited to share it with you. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together, wherever it is that you're listening right now. We have a lot of episodes on the way, so if you get subscribed, you'll find out about them as they come out. You could also drop a little 5-star rating and review while you're at it. You can follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. And before we get into the conversation, I do want to let you know we have a full summer of these live shows coming up. Thursday, June 6th, we will be back at Maya Cinemas for Bad Boys Ride or Die, and you can enter to win tickets right now on our website, piecingpod.com. And then Thursday, July 25th, Deadpool and Wolverine. There's also going to be an enter to win tickets contest any day now, so keep an eye out for that. Then after that, we'll be back on Thursday, August 15th for Alien Romulus, and Thursday, September 5th, for Beetlejuice. All those at Maya Cinemas. So many great movies to talk about. Great lineups that I'll be announcing very soon. But enter to win your tickets for Bad Boys, and I hope to see you at some of these live shows. The turnouts have been great, and I just want to keep growing these things and keep having a fun time talking about movies right there in the theater with everybody. It's so much fun to do. But with that said, let's get to this conversation about Furiosa. My name's David Rosen. I'm the host of Piecing It Together podcast. We are going to talk about this movie we just watched, Furiosa. And first up, I do want to introduce my guest. So starting out right here, Shahab Zargari. Shahab, tell everybody about yourself.
Hi, I'm a local filmmaker, and I work at the UNLV College of Fine Arts. I've been on this podcast a couple times, so thank you very much. The last one I was on, I was like, oh my gosh, you're doing Furiosa, please. I know there's like a vetting system, but I gotta be at that one.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I'm just realizing all three of you, it's your second time on a live show. That's kind of cool. But right up next there is Sam Novak. Introduce yourself, Sam.
Hi, Sam Novak. I'm a writer for a website called Vegas 411. And I am a former movie theater manager and a lifetime movie fan. This is my second time. As you said, the last one I was on was for Godzilla and Kong, the whatever kingdom it was.
Yeah, the floaty one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness this is something better to talk about. Even though David loved the movie.
I sure did. But yeah, well, maybe that'll come up. We'll see. But yeah, absolutely happy to have you back.
Thank you.
Over there, we got Toni Gonzales. Toni, introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Toni Gonzales. I am a certified movie critic and a longtime entertainment journalist. I watch movies for a living and I talk about them. If I like them, I like them. If I don't, I say it's probably better suited for somebody else.
That's a good way to look at it. Absolutely. Yeah. That's how I felt about Godzilla x Kong. But, this movie, though, this was definitely the highest, like my most anticipated movie of this year, and not just because of Fury Road, but just George Miller in general. Like I'm just so in on the George Miller thing right now, and I actually wanted to use that. I kind of told you guys ahead of time we were going to use a different like first puzzle piece to introduce the show, but I'm going to actually pivot a little bit. If any of you want to use that one, go for it later. But I like to introduce the whole concept to anyone who's here that has never listened to the show before. We call them puzzle pieces. They're movies we think might have inspired the movie we just watched. And I actually want to just jump right in with George Miller's previous film, 3,000 Years of Longing, which I love. And most people didn't seem to really connect with too much. But it is a movie that celebrates the art of storytelling. And the thing is the Mad Max series, I just rewatched them all like this month in anticipation of this. It's always been a series about these kind of interconnected stories that somebody is just telling, and they might be true, they might not be true. These people might have never even interacted with Max. It's just completely impossible to know. It's just these things that are told on this wasteland. And this feels like it could have been another story that the Djinn is telling to Tilda Swinton's character, or Tilda Swinton's character has written. This just feels like a continuation of the celebration of storytelling that George Miller was in the midst of when he made that movie. And I know that movie was a totally different speed than Mad Max Fury Road, which is probably why a lot of people were just like, what the hell is this? But as a lover
I'm
of
surprised
stories,
you went there.
Yeah?
That was not one of my puzzle pieces at
Okay.
all. But I did love it because it also showed that George Miller isn't necessarily action,
Sure.
right? It was a series of stories, a series of conversations. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a celebration of what stories mean to us and what they can be. And what about you guys? Sam, were you a fan of that, of 3,000 Years of Longing?
I was not. In fact, I got to say that after seeing that, I was a little bit worried about this one.
Okay, all right. I mean, you're certainly not alone in that.
I
you know?
went into that one really excited because it was a George Miller film, and I came and saw it here, as a matter of fact, which this is a far side of the town from where I live, and I wanted to see it here for some reason. And I was all hyped up for it for about 30 minutes, and then it kept losing me further and further, to the point where I just wanted to go out to my car.
well, first of all, thank you to Maya Cinemas for having us. Beautiful theater. But you're certainly not alone in just that movie losing you. You know, as much as I loved it, a lot of people just did not connect with it. Let's Tony, what about you? Were you a fan of that one?
Of Furiosa, what we just watched?
Of 3,000 Years of Longing.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I remember seeing, I know I saw it, but it was unremarkable
just didn't make
to me. It just
an impact
didn't,
at all.
I mean, I remember Tilda Swinton being really great, but I don't remember the intricacies. What I do like about George Miller, though, is that he is, as you were saying, is a very eclectic director. He can do animation. He can do things like 3,000 Years. Is that the name of it? And then these big, huge cinematic masterpieces. Any director who can do that and do that even average, I think, is really good. Any director who can do that and do that well is really good. So he'll have my respect for that matter.
What I did like about that film is that, so during COVID, my family and we had to be creative. So we shot a short film, and we shot a few different versions of one dream sequence. Because in the script there was a dream sequence and then a waking time and then another dream sequence. And I was like, you know what? Film festivals hate movies that are shorts but are in the 20-30 minute range.
Yeah.
So let's do a version where I can take these two different dreams and make it into one. And it didn't work in the edit. It just, the story didn't make sense. And so sort of the whole film is conversations. I was kind of self-conscious about that, but then George Miller did an entire film where it was all conversations and stories. I was like, woo.
Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, he nailed it, but he did that here too. I feel like Furiosa is also just a collection of more stories on the wasteland. Like that is what this movie ended up being. It's still a Furiosa origin story. It's still a Furiosa prequel. A prequel right up to the beginning of Fury Road, but it's also a collection of stories, and so that's why I wanted to start off with 3,000 Years of Longing. But let's go to another piece. What do you got, Shahab?
So my first piece is Army of Darkness.
Nice.
A lot of the camera moves, the cars. There was that one moment which, I don't know, maybe it's just my brain, but I feel like that was Mad Max on, like, right before the maggot scene where her arm got cut off, right? As she, the vultures are above her, that's Mad Max's car. So I think he was on that ridge looking over, right? He didn't want to get involved, kind of thing. But just, that iconic car, which Sam Raimi always has his car in every film.
Sure.
And last but not least, he called it a boomstick, which is definitely Army of Darkness. So
I thought you were going to go with the robotic arm creation.
That too.
So that too. But yeah, we need to protect Sam Raimi and George Miller at all costs. They're the best, absolutely. You guys, big reactions over there. So I'm assuming Army of Darkness fans over there.
I got some of that, especially with reference for the boomstick and the doing something with the arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
hadn't occurred to me, but now that you say that, I'm like, yes, that's a perfect puzzle piece.
Right on.
1,000%. I kept thinking, and
Why,
this
thank you.
is gonna make you guys think that I hated the movie and I didn't, but I just kept thinking of watching those cartoons with the coyote and the Roadrunner.
That
Like-
makes me think you love this movie.
That's like
Because
I
that's
kept
the
going back to that.
best.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so elementary, and that he is just trying everything he can to try and get her, and this Roadrunner's just like chilling out, like, no, I'm not gonna get me. Like that's what I kept thinking about. And
Sometimes that's the best way to tell a story is just take it back to cartoons. You know, they're so much fun to watch, and this was so much fun to watch.
it really was. I will say that it was really fun to watch. But the puzzle piece that I actually really liked was I kept going back to Speed for me.
Oh, nice, nice.
Oh.
You know, like
Interesting.
the whole like without giving too much away, the tanker that's got to get to the gas and she's got to do the little magic underneath, and at all costs you got to keep moving, do not stop, keep going, doesn't matter what's happening, you got to keep going, your foot's on the pedal. And I was like, oh, that's very Sandra Bullock, Keanu Reeves kind of vibe.
Yeah, sure.
That's how I felt. Yeah,
I
that's my
love
puzzle
that.
piece.
I love
One
that.
of them.
Absolutely. And we didn't have piecing it. We've been doing this for almost 7 years now, but we didn't have it back when Fury Road came out. I feel like that would have fit there too.
Agreed.
Yeah, like these movies definitely.
definitely.
Yeah, they have that kind of thing of where it just has to keep going and there's just no stopping. But let's go to your first piece, Sam. What do you got?
First one I have is the original Conan the Barbarian,
Nice.
Um,
yeah.
getting somebody that's kidnapped
Yeah.
from their home and taken and integrated into somebody's society.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a second reference to that in the sequence where they were showing all the possible demises for Chris Hemsworth's character.
Oh yeah.
And one of them was him crucified in a
Yeah.
tree that looked exactly like the one that Conan was crucified in. And he also had the vulture flying around, which was the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That makes my little Roadrunner coyote.
These have all been great so far, and all
Roadrunner
such
Coyote's
great stuff.
perfect. Yeah, that's
All great
desert.
stuff.
Yeah.
But no, Conan is such like a visually awesome movie, and I mean, what is George Miller if not just visually awesome? You know, so
Amazing.
that fits really well. I like that a lot. I'm gonna go with one that maybe a little obvious here, but especially because this is such a kind of part two or part one, I guess you would say, B-side almost in a way of Fury Road. I'm going with Kill Bill 1 and 2 combined.
Yes.
Interesting.
If you take everything and take it all out of order, and I've never seen the whole Bloody Affair cut or whatever where they like redo the order of it all, but yeah, if you take everything out of order, you kind of get a story like this that's just all about vengeance and whether or not that vengeance is going to, lead to anything worthwhile for the character, but they're going to get it anyway, whether it's good or a bad thing. And yeah, you've got the first movie, which is arguably the more exciting movie, and that would be Fury Road, of course, because I mean, there are bigger set pieces, I feel like, in that one, and bigger, more exciting chases. But then you got this one that fills in all the story, which would make it more like Kill Bill Volume 2. So it's kind of like I said, like mishmashing the order of it all, but getting both Kill Bills into this series.
Well, and I felt like to tag on to that, I felt like Fury Road was a little bit, I don't want to say realistic, but it felt a little realer, whereas this one just felt like a lot of it was computer generated, and a lot of it was very drawn
A lot
in
more
and very
VFX.
painted.
Yeah.
And
Which
yeah,
is something that he was always steering away from before.
precisely. I thought that
If
was
I
really
recall,
interesting.
the first time that he ever used any CGI was for Fury Road,
Mm.
and almost was apologetic about it. But now they're really leaning on it.
Boy, he leaned and he went up to that CGI mountain and planted a flag.
Yeah.
He was
Did you
like,
notice the credits had Disney Sydney? So they probably used the volume that's, Disney.
I hope not.
No,
But
no,
I mean,
there was a
maybe,
few. There was a
maybe.
few moments
Yeah.
in there, some nighttime scenes. It was definitely
Oh,
not
definitely
out.
in the nighttime.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, we could go on like a long tangent here about just the movie business right now and how hard it is to get the resources that you need to make a movie. I think this is just the reality that he couldn't spend another 10 years making this like he did with Fury Road. And so he had to have some more visual effects. But I thought it looked great. I thought it was all seamless,
it was nice.
honestly. So,
He actually added. I was listening into a press conference that he had done earlier in the week, and I thought this was interesting with respect to visual effects. Was he said the one thing that he really kind of embraced this time around was if you take your thumb and you put it up to anything, that's really all your eye can focus on. So everything else is in the peripheral. So he kind of felt like whatever the thumb, or i.e., was the your focused eye on, is what was most important in terms of what was on the frame. Everything else you could kind of paint in, if you will.
Interesting.
So
In
I
fact,
thought that was
on
interesting.
Fury Road, he purposely filmed it where what he wanted you to look at was always in the center the entire film. So that you never had, even if you did look away, you always knew that when it cut from, one person to the next, they were always in the center, which is not something you do, when you do films with the over the shoulder shots,
Sure. Yeah. No, that's definitely a unique way of shooting something. But hey, it's George Miller. He knows what he's doing. But let's go to your next piece, Shahab.
So my next piece, and I know it's usually a film puzzle piece. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I also feel like video games are another type of storytelling,
Sure.
another type of cinematic experience that you can have, just almost a choose your own adventure version. So when Fury Road came out, there was a game that I bought on Xbox that was Mad Max, and it wasn't called Mad Max Fury Road, but you could tell it was that map, that world.
Sure.
And the main bad guy was Scrotus.
Oh, okay.
So it was almost like he was, pulling a little bit of that video game canon into this. You go to Gastown in that game. I mean, that game, it's one of these ones where it's almost like a Zelda, right? So you're doing all these side quests and you're doing, man, I almost never finish those games, because you're like, another task. I finished that game. It was so good. But anyway, so a lot of the shots in this and a lot of the cars really felt like it was paying homage to that game, because the game didn't do that well. When it came out, everyone was confused. Like, who are all these bad guys? They're not even in Fury Road. So that's definitely one of my, that's my next puzzle piece.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've never played it, but this movie, like I said, it's like a collection of short stories about things happening on the wasteland. So the whole lore of all this just gets opened up with all these new characters and all this other
subplots.
Yeah, subplots and new towns to explore and all that. So I mean, that does seem very video game like, and
I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I lucked out. I bought it from a Redbox for $5. You know how they sell you the used ones? Man, such a good game.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's go to Tony's next piece.
Okay, this is going to be really simplistic, but the History Man very much reminded me of Memento.
Mm.
Do you guys remember this?
Mhm.
Yeah.
With the tattoos?
Yeah, and I just thought, did they do that because they thought he was so old that he wasn't going to remember?
I could use that.
I think that's just his
honestly.
library,
Yeah,
almost. There's no paper.
That was interesting. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's certainly a way to make something. Yeah, but what else are they going to write on? What are they, I mean, it's really kind of low-hanging fruit, but that's the one where, and then when she had on her arm, and I thought, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. I'll take that one. So it wasn't a huge
Although I thought
piece,
with the
but-
arm thing, I thought someone was going to take it as a treasure map.
That's exactly what I thought.
And they
yes,
didn't.
and then
so-
Because you
take,
knew
yeah,
the arm was
exactly.
going to go.
Yep, 100%. I'm with you guys on that one.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that, the treasure map, and just taking it with them. Like that would have
But
been pretty
it
good.
was more badass. You just left it.
Yeah, she was just like done.
You can have it.
Which, speaking of which, that was kind of Coyote Ugly-ish, just a little mini piece, but
I don't know.
but yeah.
Speaking of leaving it, like, did nobody think when the girl disappeared from, the den of ladies, she just poof, nobody looked for her?
I was a
Nobody
little confused about that too.
She just- disappeared, and that one guy came really close to kind of finding out who she was. Not just, no spoiler alert there or anything, but she's just, the little girl, the treasure little girl who came
She's
all
gone.
this
Also,
way.
it's the wasteland, They
got better things to
Someone
worry
got
about.
their hands on her. Yeah.
I was like, okay.
But for Morton Joe, I mean, the women were absolutely essential. So she was like
Right, she was coveted.
Yeah,
She
she was
was-
extremely important. And then
He just poof, out of sight, out of mind. He's
Yeah.
just like, oh,
and then
oh,
and
well.
a new guy props it into the other mix, and no connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely a weird part of the movie, I think. But
Speaking of
Yeah.
weird parts, did you get weirded out by the sometimes occasional voiceover guy?
Yes.
Right? Like, who
'Cause you never
was
knew
that
who he
even?
was.
And,
I
like,
liked that only because, back to my first puzzle piece, I mean, it just reminded me of the storytelling aspect,
Oh, I see.
and there is like little bits and pieces of voiceover throughout the Mad Max series, and it's like it's never like an always there thing, but it does pop up here and there.
But you
I
kept-
may be wrong, but I thought he identified himself as being the storyteller, the historian at the very, very beginning.
I think so. Yeah, I think
See,
so.
and if he did, I missed that. I'm with you on that one. But because in the end, when he's like, "Oh, I heard it from her personally," she told me herself what had ended up happening to him. I thought, Oh, did he identify himself, or
Yeah.
is he
yeah.
somebody that we're gonna
I'll
supposed
rewatch it again, but I'm pretty sure that
Yeah, okay,
because
I
it was
missed
one
that
of those
then.
opening shots in the darkness.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the tattoos were on the face.
Yeah,
Totally
absolutely.
missed that.
Yeah.
I'm glad somebody was paying attention.
I knew it was going to be up here. I better pay attention.
Yeah, right,
I
right.
had the Maya Cinemas themed cocktail before, so I'm going to blame that.
There you go. There you go.
Hey,
you're doing all right so
They
far.
are a
but,
heavy hand, and
Sam,
there's nothing wrong with that.
what do we got next, Sam?
Mine might be a little bit of a deep cut, but it's a film from another famous director for the first name of George Romero.
Mm.
He did a film in 1981 called Night Riders,
Okay.
which was it was jousting on motorcycles,
Nice.
and the outfits that they wore looked almost exactly like the rogue group that was attacking the war machine during that one extended sequence that had the tendrils coming out of their hoods.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the cover poster for Night Riders.
I've never seen it, but it sounds awesome. And I mean, George Romero, I mean, come on. But the imagination of movies of that era, it's like you could totally picture just how crazy it must be, you know?
Take a look.
Look at this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that movie looks wild.
Oh,
things
so
that were
we're
on the
looking at a
back of the
poster
war
of
room.
it.
this is
Yeah.
the
Oh,
ad-
yeah,
this
he
is the ad from the movie
does.
from 1981. So I saw that right away. I mean, I didn't see the movie, but I was familiar with the trailers and the posters,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's the character right there.
Right on. Right on.
Sorry, podcast listeners. Google Night Riders poster.
Yeah, there'll be a link in the show notes.
It's a red background.
I'm gonna go with 300, the Zack Snyder movie. You can go with a lot of these kind of like epics type movies, but I wanted to go with this one specifically because, that obviously having its graphic novel influence and base, is the source material for what Zack Snyder is then taking and turning into this big, gigantic, over the top epic, whereas George Miller is just taking this insane mind of his and kind of coming up with all these crazy things that are, some of it's based in, some form of history, but perverted into like this new wasteland version of it. Some of it from like mythology and stuff like that. And then again, perverted into this futuristic landscape. But it's all just freaking weird. And there's a lot of that in 300, even though it had that source material. And so I think you can go with a lot of different epics, biblical epics, things like that. But I wanted to bring
Ben-Hur
that one.
with
Ben-Hur, absolutely. Absolutely. Ben-Hur fits right in there with that.
Another connection to 300. Nearly all the male cast topless.
Yes, absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. I'm sorry.
Not
For the
objective, but I'm
record-
just like they're very
connection.
much the same. I was saying to my friend, like, how many muscle guys did they audition for this
Yeah.
movie?
Yeah. Are they all Australian too, do you think? Like every last one of them?
Probably. He
Yeah.
seems to pull from that.
Yeah. That's just how it is out there. I understand. But
Can we talk about the character names? Toe Jam. I mean, come on.
amazing.
There were some pretty funny ones in
Yeah.
there. I thought that was pretty
What
good.
was the name of the women from the green place? The Volvani?
Yeah, the Volvanius or something.
Mm, okay.
Oh, that George Miller, we love him. Let's go to another piece, Shahab.
Okay, so bear with me. I know you're probably going to laugh here. I'm going to say the Timothy Chalamet Wonka
Oh wow!
because that
okay.
was also a prequel.
Mhm.
That was also a film I went in very nervous about. Ended up liking very much, but also had just like Furiosa had so many callbacks to the original.
Hmm.
So I mean, unbelievable amounts of Easter eggs and nods. So in that respect, very much so. And not only nods, but certain things where like, that's why later Wonka has them sign a contract. He learned it from that lady, or
Right,
whatever. Or
right.
that Imperator did all his fancy things. She learned it from him. So in Fury Road, she's doing all the fancy, tricks.
Sure.
But that's
Yeah.
so much easier to do when you have the same director for continuity who can like do those things.
Yeah.
You're like, oh,
That's
yeah.
true.
He's
that's-
probably been
Wonka
thinking
did
about
not.
this
Yeah.
stuff.
No, it did not. So
Yeah.
in that respect, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that is kind of like what the whole Wonka movie was. It was just like,
really was.
let's show how that happened. Let's show how that happened, just over and over
And I
again.
think this had a little bit of that, you know.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Right on. Tony, let's go to your last piece.
My last piece is actually going to be a movie, I think, from the 80s too. I want to say 80s.
Mhm.
Movie called Christine.
Oh,
Do you guys remember this
Of course.
movie?
Absolutely.
I could recite the dialogue.
I
Oh.
mean, did that car that she was driving in the end not remind you of Christine, just
It
in
had
terms
the
of the
same
bass
engine
and
sound.
the personality and the, you kept expecting like maybe Wednesday Addams to pop out of that thing at 1 second, but it
Totally.
was just like the whole bass and the whole like, and the, I'm gonna really just mess with you, and oh, you want to come with me? Come on, like just
Yeah.
completely egging him on, which I was like, yes, I love that part.
I was
love.
trying to remember what movie that was reminding me of when she's backing up and going forward again.
Mhm.
It was from Christine.
Christine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
That
I was
was
like,
a really
I
good
said,
one.
that'll be my third puzzle piece if I could remember. And here I am telling you I know all the dialogue, but that one sequence
Yeah, where he's like, come on.
ringing the
come
bell in my
on.
head.
I loved it. She
That
was
was
just,
perfect, yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
woman thing right there.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I'm going to pursue.
Yeah.
No. Come on. Come on.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Great piece there.
I like that one.
Sam, let's go to one more.
I'm kind of torn. I've got two possibilities. One would be Kingdom or the Planet of the Apes and all the related ones because of the fact that you've got a future world where they're dealing with technology from the past and trying to improvise, keep it going, figure out what to do with it.
Sure.
But more so the 1984 version of Dune.
I was thinking about that too.
Yeah.
Because you had Paul Atreides up there on high with all the masses down below in the desert, giving the speech for the the attacks and all that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Also, the sequence where the sand was opening up, the guy was being pulled down. It was just like when the sandworms come up.
Yeah.
Terrible way to die.
That's true.
Mm.
That's
Terrible
true.
way to die.
I would also say, and maybe this is unintentional, I don't know, but a feeling that it's okay to be goofy, which is what I really like about that version of Dune over the recent, versions
And
of
Miss
it.
Furiosa was pretty
was very-
funny.
it
There
was
was a lot of
silly,
one-liners.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It allowed you to have fun along with a serious story.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
there-
don't remember laughing at Fury Road. That was just intense. It was
Yeah.
long,
Yeah, but how much of that do you think is because it was Chris Hemsworth? Like, I know a lot of the humor was mostly around him. I mean, there were a couple of lines that weren't, but by and large, he's the one who brought most of the humor,
that's
comedy
true.
to it. I wonder how much of that he
Maybe.
was able to kind of inject into that script. I know he brought the teddy bear to life, really,
Sure,
much
yeah.
more so than anybody expected. But
Also, the War Boys were like dumber in this one.
Yes.
They were like, so that I think there was a lot of laughs there, because they were just really just
kind of
dumb.
Beavis and Butthead
They were
is
a
kind
little
of what I
bit.
was thinking with
Yeah.
the two brothers. Especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll go for one last piece and then we'll open up to the floor. But I was trying to think of a piece for the idea of a prequel that is a spin-off of a character that was introduced later in a series. So I've got a better version of that and then a bad version. The better version would be Better Call Saul, which, coming in after Breaking Bad had already started. He shows up, he is the best, and then they go and make a spinoff off of him. That's a prequel. But the bad version, but because it's a movie, maybe it's a better example, would be The Scorpion King with The Rock. He shows up in a later Mummy movie, and then they have to show his whole origin and all that. I don't know. Maybe we're going to open it up to the floor here in a minute. Maybe somebody has a better version of that, but those are kind of the two that I thought of when it comes to like this very specific thing of the character wasn't in the first one. They came in later on in the series. Then we decided we need a prequel. We need more of that new character. So that's what we're going with. But I want to open it up to the floor, and we do have some prizes. We got some shirts and posters. So I see a hand already up there. What do we got?
I have one. If you trade the sand for water, water world.
Oh, yeah.
The tattoo and the younger girl and the little glimpse of there is a promised land.
Yes.
David, you got to book her. That's
Yeah, I
a
know.
great one.
She always has good ones.
That
on
is a
this.
great puzzle piece.
Yeah, thank you very much. I love that. And yeah, that is. I haven't seen Waterworld in a long time.
It's okay. It hasn't changed.
I saw
it kind of holds up.
Yeah, I saw the
hold
Universal
live.
Studios show, the live show. That was fun, but so we got one right here.
So I've done these a couple times. I always watch with puzzle pieces in mind.
Nice.
Both of you stole my puzzle pieces.
Oh no.
Speed I had in mind
Mhm.
with there was a scene where they did like an under the
Mhm.
war
Yeah.
rig, and I was
And it
like,
comes
that's literally
over,
a
the
reference
cameras-
to Speed.
yeah.
It was so good. And then 300, there was like one of the mothers, like in a pinched situation and taking on a bunch of people, and I was like, well, that's clearly 300. And then both of you said that, and I was like, oh no. But in the first half, when Furiosa was very young, I got like a Matilda vibe where she's like very bright, very young, but like kind of quiet. And then like the elders, like who are around her, kind of like are not like giving her enough room to grow. And that's very akin to like Matilda. And so that was my the thing that nobody said. So that's what I was
Awesome. Yeah, I like that.
Did it bother anybody that we didn't really see Furiosa, Anya Taylor-Joy, for like an hour and 20 minutes?
Yes,
she didn't
me.
speak.
Yeah.
I was like, I clocked it. I'm like, it was an hour 5. We finally saw her, and it was like another 15 minutes before she finally spoke.
And yet, when she did come into frame, it didn't dawn on me that the transition had taken place because, well, actually, I don't know why, but it was like, oh, wait a minute, it's her now.
Yeah, it was just the tree that had grew from the, and I was like thinking, okay, well, I mean, no disrespect at all. Hey, none at all. But I was expecting more of her.
Also, during a lot of the like branding and everything, it was Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth, and there was not a lot of screen time with them together.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, it's one or the other, but not both. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was promised both.
That's interesting. Yeah, because most of the time they're together is
With
when
the
she's a
young
little
girl.
girl.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Like that would have been good to get more of them, because then at the end, like the last 30 minutes is fantastic.
It is great.
So yeah, I would have liked to see more. By the way, I love that her name was Furiosa when she was a little girl. Like she didn't just earn that name later on. That's great.
That was her given name.
Yeah.
That's her government name.
Amazing. I love that. We got a hand right there.
I was kind of shocked that you didn't mention this. Road Games with Stacy Keach. Yeah, Tom Burke, who plays Jack. He just looks like Stacy Keach with his hair lip. And the entire movie, I'm just, it's Stacy Keach as a road warrior.
That was the new Road Warrior guy, right? That was his name. Yeah, that guy was interesting. Where did he come from? Like he's just like I didn't expect there to be like this new Road Warrior guy that is a stand-in for Mad Max, basically, that she teams up with for like a quarter of the movie.
Yeah, no. Well, were they in love? Or
I think they ended up falling in love.
Yeah, they were
No.
getting that way.
Yeah, so I just think Immortan Joe always has a driver. And so when we meet up with Immortan Joe and Fury Road, it's Furiosa.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this was just the guy who did it before her.
Yeah.
And he always has some driver that goes to Gastown and Bullet Farm.
Which would make sense since it's how she got to where she is. But yeah, that whole thing, I mean, the only time that you even got a notion that there was any kind of a romance in the trailer was when the two of them were leaning forward head to head.
Head to head.
One quick moment in the trailer, and that was it. I don't even recall seeing his character prior to that.
Right, I didn't at
I
all.
wonder how much of that had to do with like a movie rating. Like maybe they were trying to keep it PG or PG-13, or I don't know. Maybe I'm
This?
being completely, no sexual.
None of the
a
Mad
lot of
Max
people
films
blowing up.
really have
Yeah.
anything.
You know what? You're right about that. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
That guy, I kept thinking he should play Solid Snake in a Metal Gear Solid movie. He looked just like that character. Like, it was ridiculous. Do we have any others in the crowd? Any others? Well, we got another one right here from Michael.
I mean, first off, the Wonka thing also, they both deal very heavily in capitalism and how it perverts things. Which
Sure.
is just most movies. But with regard to Jack, it's just because she has that relationship with Max in Fury Road that makes her entire story full circle, because now when you watch Fury Road, she'll have this very strong emotional connection to someone just like Max. Who
Yeah.
is just everywhere.
Yeah, he is. I mean,
That guy gets around.
well, that's the thing. He's everywhere and he's nowhere. He's part of the story, basically. He's just part of the stories people are telling everybody.
I was really curious to see what other people found of the fact that they shoehorned him in there for just a moment. I was like, is it just kind of like some sort of a cute little Easter egg? Was it something that was supposed to look like? And then when in the rolling credits, they did credit someone as being Max.
Yeah.
I think I think going back to what David said about it being a collection of stories. I mean, that just feels very comic book issues for me.
Mhm.
So in some moments in that universe, they must have crossed paths like that. But I also want to say, I was very impressed with Anya Taylor-Joy's Furiosa dialect. Like I think she nailed it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
come with me. Where's my car? I'm like, wow, she really nailed the voice.
Yeah, she got it. I mean, in this movie, like we said, she doesn't show up for like an hour in, and then it's still a while the transition. But yeah, I mean, she really sells it as a young version of the Charlize Theron performance. So I think as much as I'm sure they would have loved to have her back, like it just doesn't make sense based on the age of the
I don't think
character.
Charlize would have gone back.
Yeah.
For her and Tom, it was a harrowing
Yeah,
experience.
That's what
filming
I've
that
that's
one.
what I've read. Yeah.
Oh my God, can
absolutely.
you imagine the budget on the age progression alone would have
Talk
just
about-
been.
And it would have looked
The
terrible.
CGI
So.
focus would have been-
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I towards the end when she had really fully absorbed that character,
Hmm.
there was in my mind no separation between the two performances.
Right. Yeah, I felt the same way.
then-
Absolutely, she nailed it.
Yeah, in the end, they do a bunch of callbacks in the credits to
Mhm.
so that was a nice little touch, which I thought was a. Mwah. What
Right
did the
on.
kids say now? Chef's kiss.
Right on. Do
That
we
was
have
nice.
any others? Oh, we got one right up here. We got two actually.
You brought up Christine, but for that scene, actually, for whatever reason, I immediately thought of Steven Spielberg's first film, TV movie,
Duel or
Duel.
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Yes.
it just for whatever reason that reminded me of the climax scene in that movie, the way it was framed or shot, whatever.
That's
Wait,
pretty good.
you know,
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
another one too, a sequence like that we were referring to earlier. 1977 one with James Brolin called The Car.
With the back and forth and
Right, the
yeah.
back and forth scene, and you never saw who the driver was.
Nice.
There were no handles on the door for the car. You were led to believe that there was a supernatural being driving the car,
Yeah.
and there was that cat and mouse.
I don't know
In
if
there,
I've
too.
ever seen that.
It's extremely cheesy.
Yeah,
but
I don't
it's
think
a
I've ever
lot
seen it
of
either.
fun.
Yeah.
At the end, the car they lower it over a cliff, a big ball of flame, and the devil's face with a curling tongue comes out of the.
Sold. Putting it on my watch list as soon as I get home for sure. Sounds amazing. We had another one right up there.
As someone who didn't even watch the trailer at all, I don't know half of what you guys are talking about. I didn't even know this was a series. I didn't know this was a prequel.
Awesome.
I'm just like, I sat there thinking, this kind of reminds me of a movie I watched in the 6th grade. Oh, John Carter. Okay. He's
Oh,
dealing
yeah.
with
All
this
right.
man in
Yeah.
like a sci-fi-ish mystical setting. That's like all I thought about.
So
And I still don't even remember that movie a lot.
I have a question for you because you're much younger than us. Did you like John Carter?
As I don't know, I watched it when I was 6th grade. I was like 13.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I think I did like it because if I didn't like it, I would just if I didn't like something my dad put on, I would just look at my food and not even look at his screen.
I agree.
But, I mean, I watched it.
Yeah.
So where's your dad?
Yeah.
Let's get your dad in here. Let's talk to him.
I just want to say I like John Carter. It's really stupid. Like it's very silly and kind of a mess in the storytelling, but I think it's basically the same as most sci-fi action blockbusters. I never really understood why it got such a bad rep.
It had a very complex story. I read all of the books.
Oh
I
yeah.
think there's like 14 of them.
Jeez.
I read those when I was a teenager, and I was excited that they were going to put it on the big screen. The fact that they changed the name and eliminated all references to the fact that it was on Mars.
Right.
I already knew at that point that they were killing its marketing because what it was not what they allowed it to be,
Mm-hmm.
and also it needed a good 20, 30 minutes trimmed from it because it moved way too slowly.
Yeah, that's
Spectacular to look at, a lot of fun,
Yeah.
but it had its problems.
Yeah.
And it should have been set up to carry out the whole series of novels. Would have been great, but they shot themselves in the foot from the very beginning. In fact, during the end credits, they actually say on the screen John Carter of Mars, which was the original title of it, and they didn't
Right.
even take that out when they marketed it as just John Carter.
Yeah.
So
Well,
they had no confidence in their own product.
going back to the sci-fi, how did none of us talk about Terminator?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This was very.
There's no time travel, I guess. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
but
why.
still,
Yeah, but
it's-
come on, like,
Yeah.
John Connor for sure.
like for real.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Terminator definitely belongs on the list here and goes along with a lot of the things we've been talking about here throughout this conversation. A lot of these big, like, especially of that era action movies with just really cool visuals and really cool ideas.
Can I give a theory on the not having it be Anya Taylor-Joy for the first half of it? So when he did the Mad Max with Tina Turner, a lot
Beyond
of people
Thunderdome.
Beyond Thunderdome. A lot of people didn't like it. They felt like it was disjointed. And it's basically two different stories where it's Mad Max, doing his thing in the cars, but then there's a whole section where it's him and all these little kids, right? What ended up happening, and the reason why it feels disjointed, is because the producer of the first two Mad Max films was doing a location scout for Beyond Thunderdome and died. And George Miller just could not finish the project. His mind was not in it. His heart was not in it. He couldn't do it. And so there's a co-director who directed all of the kids scenes. And that's why it feels like two different flavors. So in my opinion, and I'm totally just making this up, I feel like he stayed on the young actress to kind of set that right and say, the world of Mad Max can focus on a child.
See, and I see where you're going with that completely. That's a great theory. I personally just think that he was trying to be reverent towards the reason why she ended up the way she did. He needed the audience to
service the
buy
story.
in.
Yeah.
Exactly. Did it need to be that much? Probably not. But I think he was being like, okay, look, we really need to honor why as a child she's so, wanting to right the wrongs of her mother, and I think maybe it's a little overinflated, but I mean, your theory I think holds water too.
And I literally watched Fury Road this morning, but I can't wait to watch it again just to see after this, like how everything lines up.
I got something that I was thinking about during the opening sequences at the Green Place, where you were seeing that they were living on the water, that they had solar panels, they had the wind turbines, and that oasis that they were living in looked very much like where the children lived in Thunderdome.
Oh, yeah.
Very much so. But most of the significant characters from that left by the plane to go somewhere else. Right. Some of them were left behind. Why were those kids grown up?
Wow.
I think that's a real good cool theory there. I like it.
I like his too.
Yeah. good stuff all around.
How many green places could there be?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Good stuff all around. Let's wrap this up with some closing thoughts. Shahab, what do you got?
So the only thing I'm going to say, and I'm not getting a commission for saying this, but if you want to know about how Fury Road was made, New York Times journalist Kyle Buchanan wrote a book called Blood, Sweat, and Chrome. And it's basically an oral history where he interviewed everyone that was involved. And so you go through all of they essentially used Warner Brothers money to put all of these rigged up cars onto a boat. And that's a lot of money. And they shipped this boat all the way to where they were going to film in Namibia. And then it rained, and now there's no more desert, and it's all grass, and they had to figure something else out. And Warner Brothers was pissed that they put everything on a boat. Like these kinds of stories, Blood, Sweat, and Chrome. I highly recommend it. Thank you again for having me.
Hey, absolutely. Sam, what about you? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, just one thing that I enjoyed about this was from the very beginning, where all the other movies in the series felt very in one place. Mm-hmm. From the very original Mad Max, you didn't get that post-apocalypse feeling yet.
Sure.
You kind of just changed things around between movies. But this was the first time where you pulled back. You saw the planet from out in space.
Yeah.
You saw what was left. You had an idea where everything is now. And it gave it some context to the rest of the world. And I really enjoyed that about it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And, to that point, just a quick tangent, and then we'll get to Tony's closing thoughts. But he has said he might want to do Mad Max The Wasteland, I believe is what he wants to call it. One more Mad Max movie. I wonder if that would just continue to expand the world, or if there's specifically a Mad Max story he wants to tell, or if he wants to just leave no stone unturned in what's happened to the world.
I think that it's great that he is taking full ownership of a property that he created.
Yeah.
Because I know you guys liked 3,000 Years of Longing, but when he ventures into other intellectual property, I feel he's a failure. Because I did not like that movie, which was based on a book, if I'm not mistaken. He also did The Neverending Story Part 2,
Right.
which was abominable.
Horrible.
That's wrong, George Miller.
Is it really?
Yeah. There's
Are you
two-
serious?
Yeah, there's two George Millers. One had a better career than the other.
That was a different one?
So which fake George Miller did?
I don't remember his other movies, but
That's like a trivia.
dumb piece of trivia that's just like lodged. in my-
Wow.
Are you? Okay.
Didn't this George
Suddenly I
Miller
feel a
go?
little
He's
bit
also
better
Australian.
then.
So you only don't like 3,000 Years of Longing, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, I'm gonna have to go look.
You don't
back
like
at
Happy
his
Feet.
official
He did
IMDb
Happy
page.
Feet.
I was gonna say this is the same
I
George
love
Miller who
Happy
did
Feet.
Happy
Happy
Feet,
Feet
though,
was
right?
good.
He did
you
do
Happy Feet
that.
too?
I'm telling you, animation
No, he
and
might have done the
He did
second
Happy
one.
Feet too, yeah.
anybody
He
who
did?
can do
Yeah.
that is
Yep.
I'm good on that.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. I learned something really
We're all
cheerful
learned.
tonight. Thank
That's
you.
what happens at Piecing It Together shows. Tony, what do you got? Any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. The genre, I am not typically a fan of the genre, but I am a fan of any movie that will prop up a female heroine and make her significantly smarter
Mm,
and more badass and a savior.
yeah.
Any movie that can do that and make a shit ton of money, which I hope this one will do, will just mean more of them get made.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my
absolutely.
closing thought. And the fact that she's a Latina, come on.
There you go. There you go.
So
Love it.
that's my closing thought.
Love it.
Mic check, or what is it they say?
Mic
Mic
drop.
drop. Mic
Yeah,
drop.
There you go.
Mic drop.
Only other thing I wanted to mention, I talked multiple times about how this is like multiple stories kind of put together. And you were just talking, Sam, about how it's his own property and how much you love that about it. If this was like a Disney property, like this would be like 6 movies, right? Like in production at the same time. I'm
Right.
so glad he gets to do what he wants with this, you know?
And
And
he's not getting any younger, so
Yeah.
he's gonna put one more out.
He's
Better
earned
happen
that
fast.
right, though. He
Yeah.
has earned
Yeah.
that right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
even if he didn't make Neverending Story 2.
Maybe that's why he earned the right.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that does it for this show. Shahab, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Shahab Zargari or shahabzargari.net.
Right on. How about you, Sam?
I am at Vegas411.com or I'm at a movie.
Yeah, perfect. How about you, Tony?
You can probably find me on Instagram at TV Producer Girl, all one word.
Perfect, perfect. And you can find Piecing It Together at Piecing Pod on all the socials. Also, we will be back here at Maya Cinemas. Thanks again to Maya Cinemas. June 6th for Bad Boys Ride or Die. July 25th for Deadpool and Wolverine. August 15th for Alien Romulus. And September 5th for Beetlejuice. So we've got a whole summer of these shows. So if you had a good time tonight, please come back out to some more. And thank you guys for being here.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Absolutely.
Hi, this is Wax Trax Records here on 2909 South Decatur. We buy all your old 45s, your old albums, any type of music memorabilia. Also, we sell music memorabilia, albums, CDs, and a lot. Come on down to Wax Trax, 2909 South Decatur, or give me a call at 702-362-4300. Thank you very much.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about Furiosa. Thank you so much to Sam Novak, Shahab Zargari, and Toni Gonzales for joining us. And thank you to Maya Cinemas for having us. Thank you to everyone who showed up for the live show. And thank you to you for listening to this episode of Piecing It Together. If you're enjoying the show, make sure you are subscribed wherever it is that you're listening. We got a lot of episodes on the way, and you'll find out about them as soon as they come out that way. You can also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. Don't forget, we have a Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, Awesome Movie Year, and my music career. Lots of great stuff over there. I've been posting video versions of some episodes of this podcast, although I did have a little equipment malfunction for this show, so I did not have video. At least all the audio is good to go, so you were able to listen. But don't have video for this one, unfortunately, but video for a bunch of recent episodes, and that will continue to be a thing for the show as we continue on. And yeah, advance episodes, all the stuff from my music, and there's always a bonus episode of Awesome Movie Year available. So check it out. It's patreon.com/bydavidrosen if you want to support the show that way. But you're also supporting the show by continuing to listen, share, send in your puzzle pieces, like the posts, and show up to the live shows. That would be awesome. If you're in Las Vegas, I would love to see you out. I told you already at the top that we have 4 more coming up this summer, maybe more actually, because I'm planning some more over at Downtown Cinemas as well, which I'll hopefully be announcing very, very soon. But a busy summer of movies. Keep an eye out. Hope to see you out. Let's close this with a piece of my music like I always do. And I got to play something that's just heavy and big and exciting to go along with the world of Mad Max. So I'm going to go with a track called Power from my album More Content. I think this would be a good one to listen to while riding around the wasteland on your put together motorcycle with severed horse heads and I don't know, whatever the hell else they decorate their bikes with. But yeah, this is Power from my album More Content. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.